Memorial Day weekend was here, and a few of us decided to go to Hot Springs Off-Road Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'd been there almost 2 years ago when we got our first JL and had been wanting to go back to pick up the badges for mine. You know the shame I was living with. My wife had a respectable collection of trail badges on her Jeep, but mine was still bare. I'd gone to both the parks in North Texas almost immediately after getting my diesel, but only one badge had shown up, and you can't just put on one badge. So anyway, the advice I was given on the first trip was to do them easiest to hardest, or Snake, Fun Run, and then Rubicon Ridge. I wussed out on this puddle because I was imagining finding out the hard way that this hole went all the way to Middle Earth. Michael and Brady didn't seem too worried about it though, and went right in. I hopped out to record it just in case things got exciting. It's also likely I would have used it to make fun of them if they got stuck. I checked the weather before coming to see if there'd been rain. There hadn't been any for the week prior to us getting here, which was good. The fact that there was still a big puddle probably says something about the soil, and it does seem like there's a lot of clay in it. The first time we were here, it was wet and the trails were very slick, but I also noticed this time, right off the bat, that the trail looked different. I think they rerouted some of it, but we finally got to a section I recognized. And this was us the last time we were here, having to use the winch just to get on the bypass. To the left, the main route at the time looked nearly impassable, but it didn't look too bad this time, so that's the way we went. After we got home from our first trip here, I spent some time online trying to see if there's a rule of thumb for how far over you can safely lean your Jeep. Yes, it's a noob question, and I learned that there are a lot of variables that come into play, but there was one tidbit I found that seemed pretty accurate. At about 15 degrees, it starts feeling uncomfortable. At 25 degrees, your passengers want to get out.
19 degrees.
Freaking me out, dude. You're freaking me out. No, we're dying. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. You're trying to tip us over.
Lies.
Oh, how far was that?
It was only like 19 degrees. They were not.
Why did that feel so horrible?
You can't really make it out in the video, but I'm laughing because I can see the face of Michael's son here. It's obvious he wasn't too keen on the feeling either.
You went at the very end, your back left, you were raising it.
It lifted?
It's about a half inch, it was just barely, but you can see it wasn't.
Pixar didn't happen.
The rest of the trail is more or less what you've already seen, so this is probably a good time to talk about the park map. Once you get a paper copy and a minute to look at it, you can see they have the map broken into sections with large letters. A section, B section, C section, and so on. Each line beneath the section header is broken into 3 fields. The left field is an alphanumeric trail designation that is uniquely identifying each trail in that section. The middle field is the trail difficulty for vehicles, dirt bikes, and ATVs. A 0 in a field indicates that the vehicle type is not allowed. The last, or rightmost field, is the trail name. The Jeep Badge of Honor trails are also enclosed in a box to make them easier to find. We started off the day with Snake. It's in the F section, trail ID F19. You can get to it by following the main road 1 to the turnoff for F42, loop trail, and then circle back. Or you can save a little time like we did by turning early on the F12 Lake Winder. We're coming up on the end of Snake and going to do Fun Run, designated G3 on the map. To get there, we need to jog right briefly on F41, then go left on Main Road 5. This will turn into G14, and at some point we got turned around and did this blue loop a couple of times before we found the beginning of Fun Run. And before we got there, we found this really gnarly section that took all 3 of us to look at. There just didn't seem to be a good way to get down it though, so we opted for the bypass to the left. So I start rolling across, and I tell you, it does not feel good. Keep an eye on the trees. Those grow pretty much straight up, so you can use them to help estimate how far we're leaning over. The folks from the channel Rocksolid Rig were out here somewhere when they rolled their Jeep. When we hit this little drop, that's exactly what was going through my mind, and boy, talk about pucker factor. As awful as it felt for us though, Michael's Jeep accelerated for a second and his back end slid sideways downhill. His wife's reaction sort of sums up what she thought about him drifting on the side of a ledge.
Oh my gosh!
Once all three of us made it across the treacherous side angle of doom, we continued, picking our way along what appears to be a rocky wash. We're looking for the entrance to Fun Run. You know, something that might look like this. Or, I don't know, maybe this. But remember that blue area where I said we got turned around? We were somewhere in here, and it sure wasn't the kid zone. Eventually, the trail we were on circled back to just below the ledges where we surely would have died in the most horrific explosions imaginable if we hadn't bypassed them. Well, look at this. Doesn't this look familiar? I'm sure the ladies talked about us later. You know, how us guys won't stop to ask for directions. But let's be honest. A few more well-placed trail signs could have been a game changer. Like, I'm not sure this is the most intuitive place for this sign. In hindsight, if we'd taken a left on F41 coming out of Snake rather than going right, we would have been on a trail rated 1 for Jeeps. Or if we'd gone the way we did, but turned left on G9, where we stopped to take pictures, that trail would have been rated a 1. Either of those would have taken us back out to Main Road 1. From there we could have gone right and then right again on G19 to get to Fun Run. We would have avoided the crazy ledge of the apocalypse completely and probably would have seen the sign for the trail. We totally should have stopped and asked for directions. Sorry, ladies. Whichever way you go, once you actually get to the trail, Fun Run starts out pretty mild. We did come across a few more of the park's signature turns, like this one, the kind where the trail curves around a tree. The tree is leaning towards the trail with its roots poking out. The trail, of course, is leaning you towards the tree. We paused here to keep an eye on Michael as he came around, because that's the kind of corner that can pull off a fender or scratch your roof if you're not careful. We weren't as worried about Brady since he already has scratches on his roof. I'm kidding, we just had to get out of the way. After winding around a few trees, the trails open up to another rocky wash. This one is a bit narrower than the one we found ourselves on earlier, and there are a few sections where you need to pay attention to your line so you don't catch your dip. At the end of the wash is a pretty steep climb with some small steps. Another flashback. The first time we were here I had some trouble going up this. When it's damp, not only is it more slick, but your tires will bring some sand with them from down below. Trying to crawl it, I just wasn't able to make it over the first small bumps. Granted, I probably could have aired down more, since I think I only went to around 20 psi, but with a little more gas I finally got it going, and the momentum helped me climb to the top. I debated including this, but I'll take one for the team and hopefully I'll save somebody future embarrassment. Don't be this guy. I didn't know enough to be embarrassed. There is no reason to drag 5 gallons of water and 5 gallons of gas around the park. I did use the traction boards, so I took them along again this time, but I kept them inside the Jeep. Anyway, back to the show. After the previous hill climb, my wife took over driving. She's a good driver, but for some reason she seems to like driving my Jeep off-road a lot more than she likes driving hers. I'm not accusing her of anything, but I'm not accusing her of anything either, if you know what I mean. We got to this section where it would have been way easier to go to the left, but I thought the challenge of straddling the rocks on the right would be a little more fun. And since she was driving my Jeep, she was okay trying it. The problem is that she didn't see the line I was trying to get her on before we got to it, so we had to do a little back and forth. And honestly, if I would have just said, try going to the right, she would have probably figured it out on her own better than me trying to guide her.
Woo! What was that?
Like I was saying. Right behind that was a little bit of a tight squeeze. There's a tree on either side of the trail with a big flat rock between them. It's nearly the full width as the trail, but doesn't go all the way to the edge on the driver's side. If you don't put your driver's tire on the rock, you're guaranteed to drag your diff across it, so you have to get pretty close to the tree on the right. Both Michael and Brady were able to straddle the rocks and get up that obstacle first try. All three of us still scraped our diffs across the top of the squeezy section. Well folks, that pretty much wraps it up. It was smooth sailing from here with no more obstacles. We just followed the trail out to Main Road 1 and took a left, following that all the way out to the main staging area. Once we aired up, we went back to the hotel, cleaned ourselves up, and got dinner. Keep an eye out for the next video. We did Rubicon Ridge the next day before heading home. Thanks for watching, and take care.